Welcome to episode 251 of the Whatnauts review show, where every week we pick a story and we talk about it. This could be a movie, TV series, anime, manga, comic book, audio drama, all kinds of entertainment. We watch it, read it, listen to it, and then we come back here and we talk about it. My name is Melissa Wilkinson, and I am joined, as always, by Kyle Springer.
I think I fractured my finger this weekend.
Doing what?
We got a new bed, and it was one of those Helix sleeper. Lots of beds nowadays, since it's all that memory foam, right? It's the compressed, like vacuum sealed thing.
Yeah.
And you open it up and it starts to expand.
Yes.
So I opened it up. It expanded upside down. So the top was on. So I had to like flip it around and rotate it and do all this like Tetrising to like get it in the actual thing. But what complicated things the most was that we upgraded from a queen size to a king size. So we have a huge, ginormous bed now. And that thing was just so difficult to like twist and turn around and do all that stuff. And so I moved the bed and it wasn't working. So I let go. But I think my finger just caught it in the right way. It's probably a good thing that I let go as soon as I did, because I heard my finger pop, which I like. I crack my knuckles a lot, so that's not really a new feeling. But it was one that I had to like, ooh, ow, like that one kind of hurt. Like that's a knuckle that I don't normally get because it was just like the small tip.
Oh,
Of my hanger. And it is a little bit sensitive, but it's kind of fine. Like I can still move it and stuff like that. But I was like, let me just go get one of those like finger splint things just in case. That's me.
Smart.
That's my weekend. How are you, Melissa? No injuries?
I'm good.
I hope.
No, I'm okay. Went to a lot of movies. I saw Evil Dead Rise, which is very gnarly, but very
How's
good.
that?
And
Good.
Beau is Afraid, which is a deeply strange one.
Tell me a little bit about that. Because I've heard some just utterly bizarre reactions to people be like, this is the worst movie ever made, to like I'm gonna go see this movie in IMAX multiple times because everyone thinks it's a terrible movie, and I love it. It's like, so I don't know what to believe here.
Okay. The
how
movie
afraid
is...
should I be?
You should not be afraid. It isn't scary. I think it's a comedy. I laughed a lot. I don't know if I was supposed to laugh at all those times, but I laughed a lot. It is a symphony of nightmares in that you just watch every bad thing you can imagine happen to Joaquin Phoenix, but in a really like mundane, sometimes in a mundane way and sometimes in a really outrageous way. Like it just literalizes all metaphors and all like sneaky little back of the brain feelings. Like instead of feeling a general sense of fear of crime in the world, he lives in like a Hieronymus Bosch painting. Like he runs to his apartment past like stabbings and just dozens and dozens of characters on the street enacting crimes, enacting things to be fearful of. It's really dramatic like that.
As it's supposed to be kind of like a slice of life, like no real plot, just like let's just watch a day in the life of this guy, or is there some like he needs to get the MacGuffin and win? Yes,
he has a goal. He has to travel to see his mother, and it's just about all of the obstacles that get in the way of him going to visit his mom.
Okay, interesting. Because I'm wondering now if that's almost the idea behind it. It's like, let's just make some simple plot, and then like everything that you would think he would do normally, either something happens or he just does it in a weird way. Like you said, like he runs there instead of walks. Like something as simple as that. Just
he runs because of fear from crimes. Kyle, I can't begin to tell you the number of bizarre things that happen in this movie. It is 3 hours long. 3 hours of bizarre things happen in this movie. It's kind of a lot. I don't know how to gauge anybody else's enjoyment of it. Friend of the show, Jack, and I saw this yesterday at 11:30 in the morning with a single other person in the theater. And when the movie ended, that guy turned around and looked at us and said, "You guys saw that too, right?"
Yes. Great stuff. Great stuff. Well, speaking of bizarre movies, Melissa, we are here to talk about Napoleon Dynamite.
Yes.
Man. So you were the one that brought this onto the show.
Yes.
What inspired you to bring this back?
I think the day this episode releases will be the 5-year anniversary of the release of my first ever review show episode. I've been doing this for 5 whole years. When other peers of mine have gotten married or had children, I did this instead. And I thought for my 5-year anniversary, I give myself a treat. Right.
The podcast game.
Married to talking about weird indie movies once a week in perpetuity. I said, I'm going to pick a movie and just announce that this is what we do. This is a movie I've always wanted to cover on this show. I think you and I could have a really interesting discussion about it. But it's been something I've been wanting to do as something special, but I know maybe it's special to you and I, but not to the general audience, not to the general public. I couldn't bring it out for any real milestone. So
Sure,
I'm like,
yeah.
5-year anniversary of me specifically. All right, this is what I want. Melissa's choice. I choose Napoleon Dynamite.
Congratulations to Melissa.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Yeah. Yes. Seriously, though, congratulations for being here on the Whatnauts for 5 years. That is a big commitment. I know me personally, who's been, I was one of the creators of the Whatnauts, so I've been doing this for 8 years now. I didn't think we'd make it past 1. So yeah, the fact that I now have you who has been here for 5 years as well is just like, this is awesome. This is so cool.
Right. I came on for 1 guest episode and I just did not leave. And you never asked me to leave, and I'm still here.
we quote unquote hired you. You officially work here. But yeah. Napoleon Dynamite, man. Wow, yeah, I remember when this was the hot new thing. When this came, I don't remember if I saw this in theaters or not. I don't think I did, to be honest. I think it's kind of one of those movies that just kind of came out and no one really noticed. But kind of word of mouth hit really fast, like right as it was leaving theaters, and people started like renting it and buying it just to check it out, and it kind of defines like our it was I feel like it was one of our like defining like high school comedies. Like
it came out
like
in
early
2000. It came out in 2004. So we would have been like 8th grade transitioning into 9th grade at that time. We're about the same age.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So like just at the start of high school, like end of middle school. But yeah, for the next handful of years, this is one of the ones we all quoted, along with like Napoleon Dynamite and School of Rock and stuff like that.
Zoolander might get in there. Who knows? A Mean Girls might have been slightly later. Yeah, this was a cult film. This is one of the things I want to investigate today. I believe we can accurately say this was a cult film. I'm not sure if it still is. I don't know if the culture burned itself out on Napoleon Dynamite.
That's an interesting thought. I don't know. Like, it's definitely not relevant today, right?
But it's also sort of timeless.
It kind of is, because like I still appreciate this movie. I appreciate the humor. it's just kind of dumb. Like, is the thing. It's just kind of this nonsensical movie that just kind of happens.
It sure does. I mean, it's not just kind of happen.
Like I'm sure I still quote it from time to time. Like it's still in my lexicon of movie quote arsenal thing that I pull out every now and then. But I don't. Yeah, like it's still not. Like I don't see memes from this as often as I think
yes.
I kind of would expect for how big this was for us. Then I know memes was also still not a thing. Like we weren't calling them memes back then.
I mean, like you see so many references to episodes of SpongeBob from around this time.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, no, I don't remember the last time I saw somebody use a Napoleon Dynamite reaction gif. Maybe it's just Kip going, yes.
Yeah,
but like that
might
it.
Be the only one, or him like looking at his big pile of nachos and being like, I'm kind of busy.
I'm busy. He has to look at the nachos while he says he's busy. I think that part's very funny. He just has to see them again.
But like that's kind of it. Like I don't feel like I've heard anyone be like, your mom goes to college in years, in like a decade. It feels like, right? So yeah, I think this is an interesting one for us to explore and look back on and just be like, what was this?
Right, because when this first came out, I think I rented it and I didn't get it exactly. But I had friends who liked it, and so I gave it another try, and then I did like it better. And then like I watched it again. I'm like, I don't know, I'm kind of tired of this. But I think a lot of that was colored by the rest of my social circle. Like I wanted to like the movie that my other friends liked, and then when they were like, I'm over Napoleon Dynamite, I'm like, should I be over this too? Is it old? But then I revisited it like 8 years ago or something. I'm like, you know what? This still hits. I think this still works. Like in a vacuum of zero peer pressure, zero cultural zeitgeist, just me alone with Napoleon Dynamite. I still find it a very charming experience.
I just had a weird thought pop into my head here. And this is such a weird comparison. Never dreamed that I would be comparing Napoleon Dynamite to Batman the Animated Series. But Batman the Animated Series has this like timeless feel to it. Like the art, some of it feels like it's the 1920s, some of it not. It feels maybe more modern and stuff like that. From the architecture of the buildings to the cars they have. Napoleon Dynamite almost fits in that same kind of wheelhouse where you're like, you're not quite certain when this is set.
Yes.
And it very much is in kind of modern day times of when it was made, but it also doesn't feel like that.
Yeah, it feels like it's 10 years behind and you're not sure, is this a period piece or is everybody in this town just sincerely behind the times?
Yes. Yeah. It's just a weird small town middle of nowhere in Idaho, and that's Napoleon Dynamite. He's just this high school kid just kind of doing his thing. Like there's not much more to it than that. There's the like class elections for president. There's the dance. They sell Tupperware. They chat online with LaFonda, who comes to
this is truly
that's it.
A slice of life movie. It's a lot of vignettes that are just very loosely connected to one another. When they have the class president election at the end of the movie, like that concept is only introduced like 20 minutes before. Like there's no lead up to it. Like everything truly just happens in this movie.
Right. It's not like at the start of the movie, like, oh, end of the week is prom or is homecoming or something.
I think he does mention the dance fairly early on. There is the segment of getting dates for the dance. Then he gets the date. Then he has to like figure out how to get to her and pick her up. And then they go to the dance. And then everything that happened in the dance is just over.
You're right. Yeah.
Like there's not a lot of repercussions from dance onto class elections.
Man, I like this. I enjoy it. I think there's a few things that maybe didn't age super well, but it's kind of negligible in the grand scheme. Like there's nothing in there that I feel like is so egregious that's like, ooh, that didn't age well. But there's some stuff that's just like, okay.
Yeah, I think you can tell that the movie has a good heart to it. And
yes, yeah.
I don't think it looks... It's interesting in that I don't think it looks up at any of these people and doesn't look down at them either. It sort of looks
around,
flat,
just
right down the middle at them objectively. Like, this is just what it is.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Something else that I really enjoy about this, the opening credits. I've always really enjoyed these, the just like handmade food credits that it's stuff is written in mustard or ketchup, or they use tater tots to spell out something. It's just fun. Like it's quirky. I don't know. Like that's the thing. I can see people watching this today and continuing that, like, I don't know if I get it kind of attitude towards it. Like I can see people doing that or understanding it or just not understanding the humor in this. I don't know if this is going to hit like it did for us back then, of like someone the same age. I don't know. Yeah, maybe it would.
This is something I've been really curious about. Is the 14-year-old today getting into Napoleon Dynamite? Like, do they find, or do they, what is it about that they would like? Do they like these sort of throwback, like semi-ironic vintage fashions? You know, do they really look up to Deb as an entrepreneur? What is it about it that works on kids? What is going to continue to work in the future?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought for sure. Well, I would suggest we do a plot synopsis, but we kind of did that because there kind of isn't much of one here.
Right.
So yeah, Napoleon Dynamite. Do you have any other kind of like spoiler-free thoughts you want to add here, or should we jump into housekeeping?
Let's go into housekeeping and then dive into a big discussion on this. I've got a lot to say. I took notes. This deserves notes.
Sounds good. Yeah, we will be right back. Here at the Whatnauts, we make multiple different shows, and a lot of hard work goes into making them, so we would love it if you check them all out. If you enjoy our shows, patreon.com/thewhatnauts is the best place to show your support. For just $1 a month, you can get early access to episodes, and at our $3 tier, a Patreon-exclusive podcast, The Pilots Club. You can even get a shout out and thank you on most of our shows at the $5 tier. And if you're one of our patrons already, thank you so much. It means the world to us. You can find out more information on our website, thewhatnauts.com, as well as your favorite podcasting platform of choice. When you type in the Whatnauts, all of our shows will pop up right there. Just don't forget to give us a nice rating and review if you like the shows. You can also find us on YouTube and Twitch for video versions of the shows, trailer reactions, and live streams. And lastly, we have merch. If you want to grab yourself a shirt or a hoodie or a mug or something else, head over to thewhatnauts.com/store to pick up some merch today. All right, we are back. A big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We love you. We appreciate you. Thank you. Over on the Pilots Club, our Patreon exclusive podcast, we got to talk about Bob Patterson, the pilot episode of Bob Patterson. Now, most of you out there are probably like, what? Bob Patterson? What is Bob Patterson? You're not the only one.
Right.
This was a very short-lived TV sitcom that only lasted a month. They filmed 10 episodes, only aired 5 of them. of the ones that were remaining that never aired, they lost some of them to time. To never be found again. We will never know what happened in some of those. And it's an odd show. Jason Alexander plays Bob Patterson, who is the world's third most successful self-help guru. It's an interesting one. One, for sure. Melissa, last week here on the review show, we got to talk about the Flintstones comics from 2016. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, this was part of a run of comics that were these sort of interesting takes on old Hanna-Barbera characters. And it was the Flintstones as this social commentary on civilization itself, where we see the Flintstones encounter issues like war, marriage inequality, capitalism, religion, like all sorts of different issues. But it's also very, very silly.
Yes. Yeah. Man, some great comics. Highly recommend them. Go check them out. Because they're silly. They're a lot of fun. They got some interesting points.
Yeah.
Good stuff with that. Over on the Captain's Log, this past week we talked about all sorts of stuff. We got a brand new clip from Venture Bros. We talked about Renfield. We talked about Adam Driver and if he would make a good Reed Richards, because that seems to be the rumor right now. And we talked about all sorts of Disney stuff. All sorts.
We talked a lot about Disneyland.
Ghost videos, hoaxes, writing the Disney rides, all sorts of stuff. It was a blast. Go check that one out over on the Captain's Log. And then last but not least, on the Reactor Core, Melissa, last week you and I got to talk about episodes 3 and 4 of Yellow Jackets. And then later this week, both myself and Ignacio got to talk about the second half of season 3 of The Mandalorian. We have some very differing opinions on that show. It's interesting. But yeah, go check that out. That was a lot of fun to talk about. But without further ado, I say we get into spoilers on Napoleon Dynamite here. Bam! Melissa, I kind of want to start this one off with a little small anecdote here. You kind of alluded to your experience of like the first time you watched it, you weren't quite sure that you understood it. You watched it again, was like, oh, okay, this is, not all that bad here. So after Napoleon Dynamite like hit the mainstream, hit popular culture, everyone was quoting it. I had some friends growing up, some like a family friend, and they were a big movie family. They watched all sorts of movies together. And like and not a like it's family movie night, we're gonna watch a family movie. They were into like the celebrity culture of stuff. So they would often watch movies that at least to me back then at that age was like, you're watching that with your family? Like, that's like a rated R film with like some nudity or sex stuff in there that like, I don't know if you guys should be watching that, or some like action movie that like, you guys are watching that. That seemed really dumb. Like, why are you watching that? But they just had this tradition that they would watch all of these movies. Napoleon Dynamite kind of slipped by them for a while. Their kids saw it. They loved it. I quoted it with them all the time. But their mom finally caught on to like, what is this Napoleon Dynamite movie? Should I watch this? So I think they caught one of the like, I think they went to go see it in theaters at one of like the last possible showings that you could go see this movie in. And I remember like talking with them, I guess that next week, and finding out that they ended up leaving the movie because the mom thought this was a like a sad movie. Like everyone is being so mean to Napoleon. Like she started crying and like feeling bad for him. And then eventually like they were like no, it's not a sad movie, like this is meant to be a comedy, like all all this stuff, but like we just thought that was the funniest thing, that like your mom cried at Napoleon Dynamite. I just thought that was such an interesting reaction to this movie. Like, who cries at Napoleon Dynamite?
Especially because Napoleon himself, although he gets bullied at school, like his uncle or his older brother will like snap at him or make fun of him or something. He doesn't seem that sad. Like a lot of hardships just sort of roll off of him. Like the fact that he is bullied does not, in a very direct, visible way, seem to affect him. He's more frustrated by very small inconveniences. Like,
yes.
Oh, I don't have any chapstick. Less I'm getting bullied.
The idea that he's also kind of like a pathological liar in a weird way, right? He's always talking about the gangs at the school and how they wanted him for his bow staff skills. Then down the road, I forget exactly when it comes up, he's like he replies like, but I don't have skills, like I don't have any good skills, which is in complete contradiction to what he was telling Pedro when he first like met him. Like, I have bow staff skills and all that stuff. Like, it's just this, he also kind of makes up his own inconveniences, right? In a weird way. To then go back here, I would like to talk about the opening scene of this movie after we get past those credits that I like here. I think this opening scene is really indicative of what the movie is and what it's about. It shows Napoleon just standing there waiting for the school bus. He gets on, and the first thing you notice is that it is not only one of those movies where he seems older than all the other kids. I think those are meant to be the like younger elementary school stuff, and he's more in high school. But that's something I've never seen, where the elementary schoolers are on the same bus as, or what's happening there. I'm not sure.
It's probably because it's in like a rural community. Like they just send one bus out enough, to like just the entire area for any student of any age. Like all the schools are probably on one campus together.
That makes sense. But I often read that scene as the like he's peers with them, but he's like 6 foot something, and they're all super small, right? And he sits in the back of the bus, and the kid who's sitting there in the seat next to him is like, "What are you gonna do today, Napoleon?" To which he replies, "Whatever I feel like it. Gosh." And,
and that is what proceeds to happen. He does whatever he feels like. He doesn't seem to want very much, but also there are not very many obstacles in his way. I was thinking about the musicals. You know, I love musicals. It is the standard format of a musical that at the beginning, the characters sing an I want song. That is, it clearly states their goals, their aspirations, what needs to be accomplished for them by the end of the show. Like, they could never do that for Napoleon Dynamite because it's not clear to me what his larger wants are. He just seems to have these very small, in the moment desires. And what he ends up
an action figure out the school bus window and drag it behind me.
And what he ends up doing at the end of the movie is not something he is seen desiring to do for that much, for that long ahead of when he actually does it. It's not like, it isn't like a Goofy movie where Max is scheming, I'm going to do this dance number in front of the whole school and then they're going to like me and I'm going to get the girl I want. It almost happens by accident. Like they don't know they're supposed to have a skit prepared. When Pedro goes up there and gives his presidential speech, there's like, oh no, what do we do? And Napoleon's like, I've been learning to dance. I guess I'll go dance with this tape that like LaFonda handed me. I didn't even plan anything to go along with the tape. Like, it's all so incidental.
It's incidental. It's a bunch of non sequiturs because that's what he does is open the window and he tosses out this action figure that he has attached to a string. Yeah, and he just drags the action figure behind. Like there's no purpose to this thing that he's doing here. He's not running an experiment. It doesn't come back up that he's trying to do something like, what are the effects of this thing on that? There's no reason, and they don't revisit it at all, and that's it. There's no explanation.
And he might be he might be trying
to wrap up my thought. I was just gonna say, like, it's indicative of the rest of the movie because like there's really just no explanation to all of this. It just happens. So yeah.
He might be trying to get the action figure to fly. Like if the bus picks up enough speed, the action figure will sort of look like it's flying behind them. But he never says that. And when it's just dragging on the ground, it's not like he says, oh, we're not going fast enough. Like, we don't know if that was his end goal or if he was attempting to do something else and that failed. It just is.
I mean, like, part of me wants to like wildly speculate and be like, he's into like painting like Warhammer models or something a lot like that. And so he's like trying to create like realistic battle scars or something just by dragging like wear and tear on his action figures, right? So that he can paint them or set them up to be some kind of diorama and like, oh, it looks real, it looks sick, dude.
Yeah, we can extrapolate these things, but there's nothing textually there to confirm it to us. Napoleon is really inscrutable. You're never quite sure how he's feeling at any time, and some of that is, I think there is at least some level of denying larger frustrations. Like he expresses that his lips hurt real bad and he needs a chapstick instead of expressing, I hate when this guy bullies me. Yeah, you
just dropped my chapstick.
And he's deeply frustrated by like these little inconveniences, but he's also very easily impressed by small things. Like he loves Pedro's very normal looking bike. He thinks he's so lucky to have that bike, but that isn't anything that comes back in a larger way. It's not like Napoleon sees Pedro's bike and is then like, how do I get myself a bike like that?
Yeah, I mean, to go back to the genre that we mentioned, it does really feel like a slice of life story because that is the kind of conversations that I would have with people like when I was young. Like, hey, what kind of bike do you have? It's a mongoose. You have a mongoose? That's so cool, right? Yeah, and then you would just be like, hey, do you have any like sick jumps that we can go do? And like that was the thing that we did, right? I think even skipping ahead a little bit when we see Uncle Rico and stuff like that and just see that he is this character that is this like, he used to be great in high school. He was the high school quarterback and he just can't let that go. And he just has these like, but he is a character that is like, despite not letting go to his prime, he is like constantly looking out towards the mountains and hoping and dreaming and just like there is this like not wispiness, but just this like
wistfulness. Yeah, Yeah, he longs for something. Other characters have more direct goals than Napoleon does. Like Uncle Rico is chasing his glory days. Kip has got his relationship with LaFonda. Pedro picks like a specific girl that he wants to ask for the dance, and he has a specific plan to try and ask her out. And then he decides he's going to run for class president. Deb's got her little businesses. Even Rex Kwon Do seems like he's got direction in his life, but Napoleon doesn't, which is something that is one of the positive aspects of this movie. This is one of the things that has kept me thinking about it for so long, is that it is these characters in these very mundane, non-aspirational circumstances. Like they're in this little town. It doesn't seem like there's hardly anything around. It's not exciting there. There's not a lot of possibility or potential, but there's no desire for getting out of this small town. Like nobody's really trying to go anywhere. They are trying to have the most fun they can with the circumstances that they have with this town, with whatever their means are, whoever it is that their friends are, whatever they can get their hands on. It's about making the most with what comparatively little you have around yourself. It really revels in the mundanity of this setting. And I like that a lot. Like I grew up in a suburb of St. Louis, a relatively compact city. So I'm like close to the city at any time. But I'm also in like the northernmost suburb. I'm on the outer edge of the St. Louis suburbs. Like
The outer
I'm
rim
right up there at the
of
top.
St.
Yeah.
Louis.
Yeah, it's me. And then you hit like the river, and then Illinois is right there. So I was in an area that you could get more rural. There were plenty of farms. Like in high school, I would like stay after school for an activity, and then the activity bus would take you home. And because there are fewer kids to take home, it's taking like a wider path. Like you're going to be in one bus with like people you've never seen otherwise, because it's driving this like massive area to get everybody home from activities or whatever. So I'm going into these like more rural, more like farmhouse areas out in the suburbs. And this movie kind of reminds me of that. Missouri and Idaho being very different states with different vibes and different landscapes. But it feels like something that's just barely outside of my experiential grasp. Like I've never exactly lived this, but I've kind of seen things like this.
Yes.
So it makes it feel relatable, but also like you are wondering about this world. You were thinking about what you would do if you were there. There was a certain element of wonder, of mystery, the tiniest bit of adventure, just because it's not the exact small town you might have grown up in.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to, is that like all of these characters, even the like smaller ones, like the Pedro's cousins, right? Like to have them in, like, these are all the things I feel like I've seen in my life, where I know someone who has this kind of connection or this kind of outlook on life, or does these not necessarily get rich quick schemes, but maybe more pyramid scheme kind of things, thinking this is the next big thing, right? The new Tupperware thing. We need to go house to house and sell this. I feel like I've seen those things in my life, despite not living in that kind of small town. But it's also strange to see all of these things happening in this small town in the ways they happen, because it just kind of creates this like almost surreal small town where it's like it can't be exactly like this, can it? I don't know, like there's just some bizarre things that happen in this, and they play everything just so straight, and
yes,
it's just kind of interesting. There's just like this weird surreal aspect to it.
Yeah, and that it is so objective and so kind of content with itself. Like you've got characters with more longing to them, like an Uncle Rico. But for the most part, a lot of the characters are trying to solve like immediate needs. Like,
Mhm.
I need a date to the dance. I want to see if I can win class president. I'm trying to get some money for college, that aren't these massive life-changing things. No, people want to change one element of an upcoming circumstance, but they're not trying to change their life. There is a level of comfort and familiarity and contentedness in this movie that I think makes
Mhm.
me, I kind of feel at peace. I feel a little comforted that, like, if these
Sure.
characters don't want for very much, what am I doing wanting for very much? Like, it's kind of Wizard of Ozzy in that way. Sometimes you really you don't need to look further than your own backyard.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Um, Man, so I think we also have to talk about Napoleon's dance. What a great scene.
We're going to this now. What's so
Why
fascinating to me
not?
about this dance is that there is a dance in the movie. They go to like a school dance, a homecoming, a something, and it's later at the class president speeches that he does the dance. Like, he doesn't express any interest in dancing. Again, everything feels really incidental. It's not like he has an experience at the school dance that leaves him saying, "Oh, I this girl would have stayed with me as my date if I would have known how to dance." Like, there's not a
We get
specific
this.
thing that you can see that he is envying, that he wants to
Man.
move towards. It seems accidental that he finds Dequan's dance
Yes.
grooves, that tape at the thrift store, and then
Yes.
he
Yeah.
buys it. And one of the
What a
funniest bits in
great
the
find.
movie, it's when you see him just through the crack in his door putting that tape in, and it says, "Welcome to Dequan's Dance Grooves. Are you ready to get started?" And he says, "Yes."
Yes. So good because yeah, like it's another one of those things. There is no purpose behind it.
Mhm.
Like he's just we randomly get a scene of
Just killing
him at
time.
a thrift store. Yeah, and he finds a Psy, one of those like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle looking daggers. Uh, and he's like putting it in one of his belt loops to just see what it would look like. I assume he bought it. That seems like
Mm.
something he would buy. If that's something you find at the thrift store, why wouldn't you buy that? I
Yeah.
would. Um, but yeah, he finds this dance video, and so that's what I like to think that he bought on his trip. He bought a sign and a dance video, which is just a
Mm.
great purchase.
Yes.
But like he's like, again, like he's not doing this to go impress Deb or to help out Pedro
Mhm.
to do this skit.
Yeah.
Like he's just, why not?
Yeah.
It's just this. Huh? Okay, it's something to do, right?
Mhm.
Like that's just it. And yeah, he just starts nailing it. And then yeah, there's the scene where he walks out. He's all sweaty, and LaFonda's heading there, and just like, "What are you doing?" It's like, "I'm
Mhm.
practicing." Yeah, and it culminates in him just kind of doing this impromptu dance skit for Pedro, and everyone loves it.
Yeah.
The crowd is just like proud. Like you see Deb as she
Yes.
starts the standing
Mm.
ovation, and she's happy for him, for Pedro. She's excited, but then you see her just like starting to look around and
Yes.
see the other people happy, and she swells with pride to see those people there, and she like
Mhm.
there's this like hometown pride that
Yes.
you kind of see within her that is neat, just like, yeah,
Yeah.
we did this.
And Deb is a character who wants to see other people being their best. That's something she tries to provide with people. Like, do you want an accessory? Do you want to be stylish, be glamorous? Do you want a beautiful photo of yourself? Where she seems to really work with who you are, what your needs are, what fits you best. Like, she really wants to see other people succeed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she's happy for Napoleon, and that really fits into who the rest of her character is seeing him up there being his best self. The dance is fascinating to me in that we don't see clearly how it impacts Napoleon's life directly. It's not like after that scene that like blonde guy comes up to him and is like, I guess you really are cool and I'll stop bullying you now.
Yeah.
Like he does it for Pedro, like seemingly like without thinking, without like factoring in. Like he wants Pedro's success for Pedro. It doesn't seem like he's really thinking about, oh, then my social status will rise if I'm
Right.
best friends with the class president. It's all about what Pedro's needs are. And I think because like he wanted a friend and Pedro was his friend. Like that's all. Like it's such an act of gratitude for something very simple. Like he doesn't really ask anything of Pedro in return.
Does he stay to hear the applause and stuff that he gets here? Because I know at a certain point they cut the tape off and he kind of awkwardly stops, and then I think he runs off stage. But then like it takes a bit for them to start clapping. That's the thing. I'm wondering if he left that situation thinking it was a failure of just like, oh, they didn't like it or anything. He might be like far enough away that he's not really hearing the applause. Or
that's an interesting thought. We aren't sure about it. We do see that gets Pedro the win. Like,
sure,
not to disparage the speech Pedro gives and his promises that if you vote for him, all your dreams will come true. But it does seem that dance played a large part in getting him the win, which is something I do kind of question, that Pedro wins on that dance's merits and less on his own merits. But also you can see that it is something like, I don't think the class sees this, but I think we, the audience, can see that was like kind of an act of love, of gratitude, of support from Napoleon to Pedro in some regard. So he earns his presidency just by being a good friend in some way. But we see that Pedro wins the presidency and Napoleon is happy for him. But it isn't clear if Napoleon is like, I'm proud of myself for the dance I did. My life is going to be different now.
We're starting a dance team here at the high school, right? Like there's nothing like that. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. This was my my first encounter with Jamiroquai. I was not familiar with the band before them. But yeah, that song just I think reignited their popularity, because Jamiroquai has been around for a long time. And it was interesting because I don't think I really looked in, like I knew, like immediately after hearing this song and liking it and all of that stuff, I didn't go search out the band to find out who they were or anything like that. Actually, it was summer camp one year that there was someone there who was really into the band, and he was playing more of the music, and I kind of liked some of it. And then just like later on that summer when I looked them up, I was like, oh, this is the Napoleon Dynamite band. But they've been around for a long time, just making stuff. So
I think the licensing for that song is one of the most expensive things in this movie. You can tell that's like a major chunk of the budget.
Yeah. I mean, not like they needed much of a budget to make this.
Like so many of the supporting performances are just local kids from the actual Preston, Idaho, which gives the movie this real verisimilitude that it's just real people being around. Like, I love the kid who asks, what are you going to do today, Napoleon? Like, his face, his voice is really interesting. You get some of my favorite like micro performances in the movie are when Uncle Rico goes to that one couple's house to sell them the Tupperware, and he's like, if you buy the Tupperware, you also get this model ship. And the wife leans over to the husband like, I want that.
Yeah, great, great.
He tries to get the husband to tear the Tupperware in half, and he can't do it. And the wife is like mad at him that he
she's
can't
so
do
disappointed. Like she has that just like
he's so sad about it. Yeah,
like I married a chump. Like oh my god, our marriage
like
is
that
ruined because he can't break it.
It's part of this interesting pattern of giant wives. Like that lady is like just bigger than her husband is. Starla is just more muscular than Rex Kwon Do is. Of course, we've got the huge difference between LaFonda and Kip.
Yeah.
I don't know what this is. Maybe it's just sort of classic funny to see very tall woman, very small man.
What's the thing that we have on our bingo
Tall and small are friends.
tall guy gets stuck with small guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at that too. I mean, like they are like in farmland. It's not like even if the wives or some of these women are like homemakers, they are doing different homemaking things. I feel like that, right? Like they are out there maybe getting some fresh eggs or like helping out around.
It's egg strength right there.
Sure, yeah, egg strength. Which is like all sorts of. I don't know. I'm but like yeah, it's not just like they're stuck. There is that one wife, the mother of the girl that Napoleon asks to.
Yes, also
dancer.
Like a very tall lady, and in the shot tall, when you see her and Rico on the couch, like she does appear to be bigger than him.
But like she appears to be someone who I would imagine, sure, more of a homemaker just by her looks and the way she's acting, but also like she's in this like 80s tracksuit, like she almost feels like she'd be the like at home, like she may have been the one to have bought the Dequan's dance video.
Yes.
Did your parents ever have that like stepmaster workout thing where it was just this like big like plastic like step?
No,
and
but
then there were you know what I'm talking about though?
I feel like I've seen other moms. I know the mom you're talking about who gets into this. Yes.
We had one of those. I don't think I ever saw my mom use it, but we had that. And like that is the kind of thing that I imagine like her being into. Like she has some like free weights as she's like stepping up on the thing. Like that is what I picture her doing. But yeah, just some interesting character. Like I liked how peppy she was. Like she definitely seemed like someone who in high school was probably also in Trish's like social circle. She seems like one of the popular girls who it like now having grown up like realizes how like, hey, some of these people that maybe we didn't like, maybe they're not so bad nowadays. Like it's like you're going with him to the dance, like it's fine, be nice. But just like great smaller performances all around. I love them. I love the cousins that show up. Just like great stuff. And I think I could be mistaken. I think one of them, the one that's driving, I think is in Breaking Bad. And Better Call Saul as like one of like Tuco's cousins. I think. I could be wrong. I have not looked this up. But there's an actor in Better Call Saul. I'm watching the final season of that right now. Just started it. And yeah, there's an actor that has like a very similar goatee. They're like this looks like a younger version of that. Like in a couple years, I could see them being cast in Breaking Bad here. So I don't know. I'm not sure, but yeah, I like their performances. It's good.
There is something very lived in about this movie that like everything feels kind of outsized, but also pretty grounded.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to talk about one of my favorite bits, which is when Uncle Rico comes in. A fascinating character to just show up and just turn everything upside down, and a really interesting symbol of another one of the great mysteries of this movie, which is just how is the Dynamite family structured? So you've got Napoleon, who's in high school. He says Kip is like 32, but I don't know how strong of a like that is. Do you mean literally 32 or just vaguely 32? Like maybe he's like 25 in Napoleon's eyes. Right. In Napoleon's eyes, he's so old, he might as well be 32. We don't know. It's not clear why they live with their grandmother, where the Dynamite parents are. We presume that Uncle Rico is the son of Grandma, but maybe he's from the other side of the family. Like everything's really unclear.
Yeah, because even the way like the grandma is great in this
wonderful.
too. Just the fact that she like immediately just kind of leaves and then goes and has this like adventure in the sand dunes with a date and has this terrible accident. But just like the fact that she, like that's what she's in, like she's into partying, like she's like out at the clubs, the bars, the like she's having a grand old time, which is like, almost not what you expect.
Yes, nobody in this movie is sincerely cool. Even the cool kids at school are not cool. I think the coolest character is Grandma.
Yeah. I mean, there are the popular kids at school. What's her name? Summer. Like, she is the stereotypical cool girl, but we also don't see her doing anything.
Right. She also feels, again, it's like, she's not ahead of the times more than anybody else is. Even the people that you would think are popular, are cool, are stylish, still dress like it's 1994.
Right. Yeah.
Like she's also fallen under the spell that all of Preston, Idaho is under, where it's just in a timeless semi-90s void.
Yeah. And certain stuff feels like, like early 90s, late 80s. But then the way like Uncle Rico still dresses because he's like caught back in the 70s, it feels
I think he says like 82 might have been the year of that game.
God, he keeps mentioning 82, but it's such a weird thing to see like all these different time periods mixing together in a weird way. But then they also like don't pull out an iPod or anything. Like there is no thing to like specifically be like, oh, they referenced MySpace. Well,
there's no TiVo.
Movie's not gonna age well.
Yeah, there's not even a Gateway 95 computer. Like it doesn't even get that close to being in the time.
Yeah.
There's this part I love when Rico is talking to Kip about how if only he would have won that game, his life would have been different. Like he would have gone to state. He would have done this in college. You know, like his whole life would have been different. So we've got that delusion that simply winning this game would have been, or like getting put in the game, being able to throw the ball would have changed the entire course of his life. And then he looks off at the mountains and he says, I bet I could throw a football over those mountains. Not over a hill. Maybe you could throw a football over a hill, but not over a mountain. Rico.
Dream big, kids. Dream big, right?
And so then there's the further escalation of his delusions where he turns to Kip and he says, you spend a lot of time on cyberspace? Have you found anything like a time machine?
Great. I love that exchange. Like that is like there are the things that I still liked, that I know I liked back then, right? The like your mom goes to college.
Yes.
You could be drinking whole milk if you wanted. Just like there's all these quotable lines in there, but then there's like there's smaller ones that I feel like didn't catch on. They're like, so I bet you know a lot about cyberspace. Right? Like that's a great exchange.
Yes.
I'm just like, why didn't that one catch on? It's so good.
I remember going into Hot Topic, and I think this was also something that fed into, at least within like my middle school, the popularity of Napoleon Dynamite, that a new mall opened up like in our suburb. So everybody could go to the mall, and you would go into the Hot Topic, which was right next to the food court, next to the movie theater. So like it was so accessible. Maybe you'd never get around to the rest of the mall, but you would get to the Hot Topic. And they had, at one point, they kept getting more and more Napoleon Dynamite merchandise until it was like a whole wall
section of it.
of
Yeah.
so many little bits. Like I think I had a shirt that said, "I caught you a delicious bass." That was one of my favorites. I think I still have a button. You'd paw through that like box of buttons at the Hot Topic to get whatever you wanted for like $1.50 with a couple bucks your parents gave you before they dropped you off. I still have the one that says, "I like your sleeves. They're real big."
Yep.
That's evergreen for me. I love
that's a great one.
I love that being the judgment on the quality of sleeves is the size.
Yeah.
And he's not wrong. Like the fact that Deb made that dress by herself is pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
man, please continue.
No, just going back to this thing with Uncle Rico, I think about now how he is the character living the most under longing, under wanting his life to be different in a way that the other characters don't have to that degree. And he is also the most delusional character. Like he believes in like time travel and being able to throw a football over the mountains and like all of his schemes to get money and everything. Like the other characters who don't want as much from their lives, who are more content, are more grounded, don't fall into that. Like their foibles aren't as intense. They're not believing in as strong of lies the way Uncle Rico is.
Yeah.
He's a cautionary tale for sure. I like when he's talking to him and Kip are sitting on the front stoop eating steaks. I love how they like live next to this farmer, so they just keep getting meat. Like that's all they eat. You never see the characters eat a vegetable. They don't live near vegetable farmers, just dairy farmers. So it's all like meat all the time, meat and dairy. They're sitting on the stoop eating steaks, and Kip is he's trying. Rico's trying to say to Kip how good he is at still throwing something, and so that's when Napoleon rides up on his bike, and Rico grabs Kip's steak right off of Kip's plate, throws that at Napoleon, and then Kip still says, "No, that's what I'm talking about."
Right? Yeah.
Kip does not care about that steak. He's not mad that his uncle just grabbed the steak off of his plate and threw it at his brother. He's still like, your arm is pretty good.
Yeah. So good. Like I love stuff like, because like Kip and Rico have a more adult connection to one another, right? They do have a conversation at the little like diner, grocery store,
right?
gas station thing.
Yeah. I think it's called
Big
like
J's or
Big J's, and the sign says a great place to eat.
Yeah. But they have the like, hey, so are you still with this person? No. And like they talk about business stuff.
Yeah.
Like they can connect in a different way that I think Kip is really into, because I don't think he necessarily gets along, or like his grandma doesn't understand him. I'm assuming, right, with all of the cyberspace chat room stuff. I don't think Napoleon cares about computers yet. Like he's still sitting there like drawing warriors on his math homework and stuff like he's into that stuff. He likes to be outside and just go play and things like that. So I really appreciate the relationship that Kip and Rico have. I don't really have anything else on that besides that. Like I appreciate it that they just have this different relationship. It's good to see, because then you do get lines of Kip almost looking up to Uncle Rico, just being like, now that's what I'm talking about, right?
Or at least getting pressured to look up to Uncle Rico.
Sure. Yeah. man. So the first time I watched this movie, I don't think I knew that there was an end credits sequence.
Oh,
because end credits sequences, I
yeah.
mean, nowadays that's what Marvel does all the time. It's what a bunch of the superhero movies do. I think a number of other like franchise style movies have started to adopt that, but this is not really something that was ubiquitous in pop culture back then. It was very missable
Yeah. And it
back
was
then.
late addition in production. Like I think the movie went to Sundance or went to film festivals without that. And then after it was acquired by, I think, Fox Searchlight as the distributor, they paid for make this one extra scene, pad out the length a little bit. We'll add this on as sort of a coda at the end of the movie. And I don't
That's
remember
interesting.
not knowing that it was there. It is an integral part of the film experience for me. Like this is also one of the things I quote the most. It's dang quesadilla. Yes. It's Deb saying, "That's the one. I think that's going to turn out really good." And it is Kip singing, "I love technology,
yes, I
but
love
not
technology.
but not as much as you see. But I still love technology." Always and forever.
It's so good. Like it's and like that's the thing. Like we quote that section.
Yeah,
he has a whole song that like and like it goes on for like 2 minutes of him just singing this thing, and like LaFonda's family is all like head in their hands, just like what is happening.
The exasperated family, how they're having like they're just in a field. There's like a table at the back with a cake on it. They're in the middle of the sun. It looks so uncomfortable to be at this wedding. Yeah.
It's the egg farmer who's officiating the wedding, which is
Lyle.
Because
I think is also the guy who shot the cow in front of the school bus.
That's him. But he is kind of this like you almost can't understand. Like he's kind of mumbling through all of his lines here, and just like, what did you say? Like, and yeah, it's just such an odd thing. And yeah, it is this like Napoleon then is late, but interrupts by riding in on this horse, and he looks like he's falling off the horse the whole time. And he lets them like ride off into the sunset on this stallion that he just tamed.
I tamed you a wild honeymoon stallion.
Yeah, God, like it's just what is happening? None of this makes sense. It's just it is what it is, and I love it.
Right, and we have no clue what could be happening next. I do think of, based on what we know of him, what is Napoleon Dynamite doing 20 years later? Where would he go in his life? What is his profession? Is he married? Who still lives in Preston? I want to know what happens to these people.
Now, I never watched any of it, but didn't they do a Napoleon Dynamite TV series?
Yes, a very short-lived, like, animated TV show that aired in like 2012 on the Fox block with like Simpsons and Family Guy.
Wild. Yeah, it says, set in the small town of Preston, Idaho, it follows the adventures of the titular 16-year-old boy. He's 16. He's supposed to be 16 in this. Wild. Who thinks he's skilled at everything. The series has created by the co-writers and directors Jared and Jerusha Hess, who developed it with Mike Scully, blah 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 blah. Wild. I know that John Heder came back to voice Napoleon. So did the actor who played Pedro.
Yes.
John Grease is back as Uncle Rico. Interesting. This may be one we have to look at for the pilots.
Yeah,
Club,
I
right?
am intrigued. I am kind of intrigued by it.
So I remember, and that's the thing. Like you said, like the movie came out in like 2004. The cartoon, like 2012.
Yeah,
Like almost a decade
I can
later.
imagine. We were in college then. I can see that, like, the audience that latched onto this movie when they were in school are still in school. Let's get them before they become real adults. And then they leave behind their childish ways, such as Napoleon Dynamite.
I mean, if it was, oh yeah, I guess so. 2012, yeah. Huh. It says the series is available on Hulu in the United States. There you go. Wild stuff. What have these actors done since then? Like, that's another, like, I of course recognize Uncle Rico from Lost.
Right, Ben Linus's dad.
Because I watched Lost with my partner recently. It's my like 8th time watching Lost, her first, and so when we first see Uncle Rico, I kind of under my breath say it's Roger Workman.
Yes,
and like she didn't pick up on that, and they show him, and he has some scenes and some lines, and I like actually then say out loud, like, man, it's kind of wild that he's Ben's dad from Lost. And she goes, oh, you're right. Yeah. Oh my God. Like, she like did not put that together. But most of these actors, I'm not like by name, like familiar with them. I know I've seen John Heder in some stuff. Since then, unfortunately, he kind of got typecast because of this thing, and so didn't do all that much that I know of after. I've seen Dietrich Bader, who plays Rex. I know I've seen
Batman.
him and stuff. Yeah, but I don't think I've seen like Aaron Ruel, who plays Kip. I think he was like Ramirez.
One of these videos I was watching, I watched several YouTube video essays on Napoleon Dynamite, and one of them was talking about how after this movie became a huge hit, they wanted the cast to do like cast appearances. And at one point, Efren Ramirez got burned out on doing them, and he asked his twin brother to go in his place. And then his twin brother went to something without telling him first, just outright pretending without his approval to be his brother. So it was this like civil war where he had to tell his brother, stop pretending to be me. This is over. You're ruining my life.
That's wild. I just looked up Efren. So I was like, what is like the earliest role that he had? In 1994, he was in a movie called Tammy and the T-Rex, in which
I know that one,
the pizza boy. But then 2 years later, he plays a character named Carlos in the movie Kazam. You remember Kazam? Was Shaquille
Who can forget Kazam?
Oh my God. So now I'm trying to see like what else he was in that I might know him. Is this what I think it is? He was in Crank, the Jason Statham movie, apparently. What else do I kind of recognize here? Nothing. Oh, he was in Lightyear.
Oh, good.
He voiced a character in Lightyear. That's interesting.
Nice use.
And then television. Do I know anything of his stuff in television? like this is the thing. Like, I don't like. I've not seen many of these characters in other things since then.
I know also in the mid 2000s, Tina Majorino, who plays Deb, was in some premium cable show called Big Love that was about the tensions in a Mormon family, and she was one of the several wives that guy had.
I gotcha.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know what came of that. I don't know what happened afterwards. I really enjoy everybody's performances in this movie. Wish him health and wellness.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like also in the TV world he's done some like one episode characters and stuff like Boston Public, ER, Robot Chicken, American Dad.
Oh, good.
Like he's done some stuff
getting
like
around.
That, but yeah, interesting. Okay,
but
interesting.
Before we head towards the end of the podcast, I just want to run through a couple other just brief jokes I think are excellent.
Yes, please.
One of my favorite turns of phrase is when Pedro wants to impress Summer and ask her to the dance, and Napoleon asks him what he's going to do, and he says, I don't know, I'll build her a cake or something.
I can build her a cake.
I love that it is build her a cake. I think that word has so much meaning to it. I also really love when they go to the FAA, like recital, whatever that is, again, it comes out of nowhere, nothing leading to it, nothing leading from it. They just do it. And afterwards, he's already decided he's going to run for president. And then he sees that Summer is also running for president, the girl who turned him down when he asked her to the dance. And you see him get so nervous. And that's when he goes home. You see him he's like, I'm hot. I drank some cool water, but it didn't help. So you see him in a bubble bath surrounded by candles, still wearing the medal he got from the FAA competition.
Amazing.
I think it's so funny that he's like, my head was hot, so I decided to shave my hair. It's real high school thinking.
Yeah.
There's
stuff.
Pedro is, I really do like his performance in this movie because sometimes Pedro looks absolutely blank in a way that is fascinating to me. Like, I think you see Napoleon calling Trisha's house, or he's calling somebody on the phone, and then you zoom out and Pedro's been sitting there next to him at the table, and Pedro's just flat. In no, I think it's after he's working for the chicken guy. He's sorting out all his money, and he's like, that's $6. That's $1 an hour. And then the phone rings, and then he goes and he takes the call from Trisha, and Pedro just sits there not moving through this entire sequence.
It's so good. Oh man, yeah.
Again,
Dynamite, man. It just what a trip. I'm glad this movie exists.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I don't know.
There's so many little bits, like when he goes to help at the chicken ranch and he asks, do the chickens have large talons? And the guy running the thing says so disdainfully, I don't understand a word you just said. That's funny to me. One of my favorite tiny jokes is when they have the time machine that's clearly a scam. And it's got just label maker labels on it. There's a knob on the time machine labeled high and low. What does that mean? High time travel, low time travel? There's so many little mysteries, so many little things that you don't know what they mean, what they're for, where they came from, where they're going. Cotton Eye Joe.
Yeah, man. Good stuff. Good stuff. I don't know if I have much else to say on Napoleon Dynamite. It's just it's a good time. I'm glad that they did make an animated series almost a decade later, just because I think that kind of shows just how insanely popular this was for so long. But also, we were alluding to at the start of just it also kind of just disappeared.
I think
I don't know.
I think it got quoted to death. Napoleon Dynamite is so interesting in that there was nothing about the character you really aspire to. Like, people quoted Napoleon Dynamite because they thought the movie was funny, but people in no other way wanted to emulate or be like Napoleon Dynamite. They just shared his words. And I think like it was on so much merchandise. It became like such a hit. People kept quoting it. I think it might have burned so hot that the culture got tired out on it. And there hasn't been a specific impetus for people to return to Napoleon Dynamite in recent years. I hope this podcast serves as that.
It all starts now.
Right. This is my goal. This is what I'm starting. My legacy I leave upon the world is getting people to watch Napoleon Dynamite again for the first time in 20 years and think like, this movie's all right. Napoleon Dynamite, worth revisiting.
Interesting. Well, let's see. Let me start pulling up bingo here so we can do all of that good stuff. Give me a second to pull it up.
I'm looking at mine and I'm finally able to cross off cow.
Yes, we can finally cross off cow.
And also,
don't need that.
Even if this movie does feel kind of timeless, I'm going to check off contemporary reference to retro tech.
Okay.
Because there is nothing that specifically there's nothing that specifically says we're not in like 2003 when the movie was made, but there's everything feels archaic even to that point. Like those top loader VCRs weren't happening anymore. Nobody's driving maybe the cousins are, but like Uncle Rico is not driving a recent car. The computer is old. The phone is old. Everything feels like it is like 10 or 15 years old.
I would even give you, I know it's not tech per se, but I feel like I would even give you an argument for Kip being in the chat rooms.
Oh, yes.
Just it's more like internet culture or tech culture, right? It's not tech itself, but yeah. We do have an awkward hand touch in this movie, so I'm going to go ahead and mark that one off for me. Sassy grandparent.
Oh, yes.
A sassy grandparent. I have that one, which also gives me a bingo.
I
have a bingo in the same spot as you.
I already have sassy grandparent crossed off from something.
Really?
I wonder what that was.
Maybe
we really need to label these when we cross these off.
We do, yeah. We need to start keeping track of we knocked this one off in this movie. Let's see. No courtroom scene, no mocap character, no death by electrocution, though Napoleon did basically get electrocuted with that time machine. I also have the contemporary reference to retro tech. So I will mark that one off as well.
I think that's it.
Yeah, I think that is it. Good stuff. Oh, I got the hiccups now.
Whoops.
Okay, so that is our bingo update. We still got some good spaces to cross off, but it's starting to get to that point where it's like we need a specific thing, all right?
Right.
Exactly.
Got to get some Batman in this year so we can cross off Butler.
Right, exactly. Cool. Let's do recommendations. Melissa, if you liked Napoleon Dynamite, what else might you like?
The horror movie It Follows has a weirdly similar aesthetic to Napoleon Dynamite in that it's also unclear. Is this set in the past? Or are these characters just like
interesting
behind the times or all fascinated with like vintage thrifted clothes or something? It has this, even though it's a horror movie set in Detroit, it kind of has that same vaguely 90s feeling that Napoleon Dynamite has, which is something that really surprised me when I watched that movie. Another cult movie from around this time. I think this movie came out in 2001. 2001. The movie Donnie Darko, I think operated in a similar cult space as Napoleon Dynamite. You could get it on t-shirts at Hot Topic. People kind of referenced it to death. Like, high schoolers thought it was cool, and then they kept talking about it, and that just annoyed themselves out of it. Like, I didn't see Donnie Darko until like after it had already been a big hit with all of my peers. I watched it. I'm like, I think I like it, but I don't really get it. And then I watched it again for the first time like last year. Like, oh, now that I see this out of like the being surrounded by fellow high schoolers, I'm able to view it more on its own merits. And I did enjoy that one. I think that's another movie that if you were annoyed by it in high school, give it another try. I think it holds up on its own. Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
I would recommend another popular thing from 2004, the web cartoon series Homestar Runner, which I think does a similar sense of humor. It's about weird, small stakes, sort of confusing family structures. You don't know why any of these people hang out with each other. There's no real goals, just immediate needs like answer email.
Guys, come on for
go to Bubs.
Everybody to the limit. The G is to the limit. Everybody come on for guys.
Another thing that's all about like drawing dragons in your notebook, like a thing that you can still like quote forever. Yeah. Yes. Watch some Homestar Runner. Watch some Strong Bad emails, please.
Yep. One of my 15 minutes of fame is that I secretly got one on there. I got a Strong Bad email.
Oh, right. There. You've told me about this.
Yeah. Wow, Melissa, you took your recommendations in a direction I was not expecting.
I've got more. I wrote down several.
Continue, please.
Watching this movie again, it really reminds me of King of the Hill.
Yes, that was going to be one of mine.
Right.
I think King of the Hill.
And I think of other Mike Judge projects, like the movie Office Space is also it's rebelling against a mundanity, but it's still aesthetically similar. Also, you've got a weird supporting performance by Diedrich Bader. Yep. My vague memories of Beavis and Butthead, I feel like Napoleon Dynamite is the next step in the evolution past Beavis and Butthead of obnoxious teen boys who talk weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, the small stakes, the mundanity of the contentedness with Arlen, Texas. Sure. Why would we ever go anywhere else? Arlen has all we need. We don't need to change our lives. We just need to win this boggle tournament, sell this propane grill. That's all. That's all. And we have everything we need in our life. For the absurd vignette structure, Wet Hot American Summer, a movie we've talked about way back on this podcast on episode 19.
Yeah.
That's a favorite of mine. That movie is like not grounded at all, deeply silly, just throwing stuff at the wall. A wild ride of a movie. I recommend it now, especially like kick off your summer by watching this. Well, it's a movie about the last day of summer camp. So you could watch it anytime up through August, but every summer I'm like, dang, I really got to watch Wet Hot American Summer again. Timeless. And finally, another movie we've covered before on this podcast. Napoleon Dynamite has an aesthetic similarity to the works of Wes Anderson. And I think out of all his movies, Moonrise Kingdom might be the most appropriate match. We talked about Moonrise Kingdom back on episode 94 of the Whatnauts review show. I believe I suggested it as a Valentine's Day movie, and that it's about these two unusual outlier kids who don't feel at home in either their family situations, and they meet each other by chance. They start a letter writing campaign. They start writing letters at each other. They develop a romance and they agree to run away together. And the movie is about them doing that and about like the girl's family and the boys' scout troop peers trying to get them back.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I again want to second King of the Hill. I think that is a perfect fit. Also around this time, if you appreciate kind of the humor of the era, don't know how well this one has held up, but The Bench Warmers was a comedy that I know back then I really enjoyed back at that time. Also starring John Hader in that one too. Let's see what else. I think if you want like slice of life vignettes on a maybe more serious note and more emotional note, a long time ago we covered Essex County, written by Jeff Lemire. That's just some good slice of life, little small town comics, which has now been turned into a television show, only available in Canada at the moment.
It's a very Canadian story.
Yes, yeah. I mean, Jeff Lemire is also Canadian, so it makes sense. But I am hoping that I get to watch it soon.
Yeah,
because I want to watch that a lot. Because we really enjoyed that book. I don't know what episode number that was on for.
I think that was like
early
2019. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then if you want a more like nonsensical slice of life, but also just kind of surreal and absurd. Oh God, why am I blanking on the name now? I need to look it up. Melissa, help. I don't know.
Give me a single clue, Kyle.
You have no idea what this one is. Let me see. Did I watch it end of last year? I think I watched it end of last year. It's one of my favorite anime. I think I've pitched it here on the show. I'm not seeing it. Where is Nichijou? There it is. I had to look through my notes of all of the stuff that I watched last year to find it. Nichijou. Please go check out Nichijou. I think it is hilarious. I know it is originally it's a manga. I have not read the manga. I've only seen the anime adaptation. But having seen the anime adaptation, I'm kind of interested to see how it is as a manga, because I almost don't understand how it could be a manga, of like how some of these jokes or how some of these gags work in a manga setting. But man, it is one of the funniest shows I've seen. But it is just a small Japanese town. You follow some of the characters that are in the school and what's happening to them on a daily basis, and the weird things that they get up to both in school and after school. You see some of the like local townsfolk and just kind of what's happening in their lives, and then every so often you see those paths cross, and it's just these little small vignette skits that are really, really good and funny and relatable. It's a good time. Go check it out.
Nice. I also want to say, have you rewatched Nacho Libre? I saw that one in theaters and I have not seen it since then.
Nacho Libre is great. One of my favorites.
Okay.
It is also one of my partner's favorites.
Good.
So we have now rewatched this together at least twice.
That's how you know you're meant to be.
Yeah. My dad, all like that has to be like one of his top 3 favorite films of all time. I still like that is one of my most quoted films still to this day is Nacho Libre.
All I remember is like him trying to get his like wrestling partner to like pray with him or something, and the guy says, I only believe in science, but it's how he says it. Like he's got a really like rubbery face. Like it's
Steven,
totem.
have you been baptized? No, I believe in science.
He sounds so petulant when he says it. That's all I remember. I wish I retained another thing from that movie. We all went to see it, like my whole family.
Do you think I am doing?
My whole family went to see it. And by my whole family, I just mean my two brothers and probably my nephew, who would have been like 7 or 8. And we all enjoyed it in that context.
It's so good. It's so good. But yeah, that absolutely fits in with the like School of Rock, Napoleon Dynamite, Nacho Libre, like all of that stuff right there is just like great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff there. But yeah, that
next
is
week
what I have for recommendations. So next week,
Thank you.
Melissa, do you want to introduce what we are going to be covering on our end of the month specials?
Yeah, we are starting a new end of the month special. The last episode we record in every month is us watching one thing all the way through to its end, so we can finally finish something. We started off the year by watching all the Fast and Furious movies, and that kicked back what we had originally planned for the beginning of the year, which was the sitcom The Good Place. So we were like, we have to fit in Fast and Furious somewhere before that movie comes out. Let's just nudge Good Place back a little bit.
Yep.
We're going to be watching season 1. There's 4 seasons, so 1 episode a month for the next 4 months. We're going to watch through all of The Good Place, which I really look forward to.
Season a month for the next
1 season a month. Yeah. Yes, 1 episode of our show. We have not covered a sitcom yet on any of our monthly ongoing series. We don't talk about sitcoms much in general.
We do have like some sitcom specials that we've done here on the review show, which I would love to do again down the road. But yeah, we've not done like a sitcom proper here on the show. So, and it's one that I've not seen.
Me either. Just starting it now. I've heard very good things. And I've heard that it's got a good amount of world building and lore. Like there's going to be a lot for us to discuss every month besides just these jokes. Funny.
Yeah. Yeah, that is like one of the interesting things I remember about hearing about this show is that, yeah, it was not just another sitcom, but there was, it seemed like there was something more to it. Which I can't really say exactly what that was. Like you said, maybe it's just in the like world building and lore. I don't know. But I know that people really, really enjoy this show a lot. And I from what I remember, I think like generally agreed upon that it ended well too.
Yes, I've also heard that.
Just like, oh, it got canceled and that was it, and oh well. But no, I think it ended well. So good to know. But yeah, that's what we will be up to the next 4 months, the end of each month. But Melissa, I have my pitches ready.
Yes.
For 2 weeks down the road here, because we also like to do that because our end of the month specials sometimes can take a little bit more than a week to watch. We kind of spread that out throughout the month of us just consuming it. So we kind of have 2 weeks to do whatever these next things are here. So I, to be honest, had a hard time coming up with what exactly I wanted to pitch.
I did hand you one thing.
You did.
I gave you a suggestion.
It is a great suggestion because the Guardians of the Galaxy movie is coming up. You suggested we do some Howard the Duck comics, which I would love to do, but it's not available on Comixology Unlimited.
Oh, heck.
So we would either have to buy them or figure out some way to.
Yeah, we did just buy Flintstones. That's fair.
Buy Flintstones, rented a bunch of the Fast and the Furious. I kind of want to take advantage of the streaming services and stuff that we already have.
Good. Okay.
But that was a great suggestion, and I was like, can I work my way around it? Could we do some what Guardians of the Galaxy related stuff is on Comixology? But I decided not to go with that.
Okay. Okay.
I think originally I was going to be like, well, it's been a while since we've done an anime, so what if I just did all animes? But then I was like, I kind of don't like every once in a while we need to like force our hand of the show to be like, yeah, we haven't done this one like genre in a while, or this one medium in a while. So we need to kind of make sure we get, that one thing. But we had a couple of those. We haven't done an anime in a while. We rarely ever do audio dramas. And it's been a while since we've done like a kid's show proper. So I have one of each of those here.
All right.
I will start with the podcast. So this podcast is called Borrasca, spelled Borrasca. And the reason I wanted to pitch this one is because earlier this year, we listened to the Left or Right game, which was created by Q Code Media. And this is another one of their audio drama podcasts. So this says, according to the podcast description here, it says, a gripping psychological thriller starring Cole Sprouse as Sam Walker. In the first season, we followed Sam as he painstakingly recounts the summer his sister disappeared, the friends he made, the legends he heard, the pain and confusion of loss. Over 9 episodes, we uncovered the unspeakable secrets of Drisking, Missouri, and the people who live there. After leaving the audience with a jaw-dropping cliffhanger, we are finally returning to Sam and the terrible truths of Drisking. Across a 7-episode season 2, a ghost of Sam's past arrives to drag him back to Drisking for revenge. Back to the forests that color his nightmares, back to the mysteries he never solved, back to the gates of Borrasca.
Okay.
So yeah, there are 2 seasons of this podcast. The first season is 9 episodes, as they mentioned, and season 2 is only 7.
Okay.
I figured we could listen to both of them. Though heads up, most of the episodes are anywhere between 40 minutes to an hour.
Okay.
So there is like 16 episodes total we'd be listening to here. But yes, and season 2, episode 3 is entitled Kyle's Map Theory. Now, I want to know what Kyle's Map Theory is, especially being a Kyle myself.
Right.
So we shall see about that one. That is pitch number 1. Pitch number 2 is the anime. This is called Carol and Tuesday. I believe I pitched this a long time ago. This
does sound familiar.
When it came out originally, I think I pitched this. This is available on Netflix. It is created by Studio Bones and Shinichiro Watanabe. You guys might know from Cowboy Bebop or Space Dandy. We've also covered here on the podcast Kids on the Slope, as well as Terror in Resonance, which was also, those were both Shinichiro Watanabe joints. But this is the plot, according to Wikipedia, says in the future, on a partially terraformed Mars, Tuesday Simmons runs away from her affluent lifestyle as the wealthy daughter of a politician and makes her way to Alba City to pursue her dream of being a musician with just a suitcase and her Gibson acoustic guitar. On her first day in the city, she crosses paths with Carol Stanley, an orphaned refugee from Earth, and another aspiring musician who plays the piano. The two decide to team up as the singer-songwriter duo under the name Carol and Tuesday. This one has 24 episodes. And I remember when this first came out hearing good things. I am a big fan of Shinichiro Watanabe and how he infuses music into all of his anime. And I I'm not certain since I haven't watched it yet, but it seems to be like just like street performers, right? And the music of people you might see in the subway performing or on the street or stuff like that. And I think that's an interesting take on a musical anime. So I would potentially like to check that out as well. Yeah, that is pitch number 2. And pitch number 3, coming in also at 26 episodes, the children's show, one of my favorite incarnations of my favorite superhero. This is Spectacular Spider-Man, available on Disney+.
When is this one from?
This one, when did this debut? Let me see. Wikipedia, don't fail me now. Premiered March 8th, 2008 on Kids WB.
Kids
Programming
WB
block of the CW. Yeah. Back then. So this only lasted 2 seasons and was canceled, and everyone thinks this is one of the biggest mistakes that Earth has ever made.
Earth.
It's not, yeah, Earth. No, I remember really enjoying this cartoon. I've watched it through once a long time ago. I remember really enjoying it and being like, this is actually really good. The Wikipedia page says that it blends different Spider-Man material, including like different eras of the comics, as well as stuff like Ultimate Spider-Man from Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Bagley, as well as Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films. But it does its own thing. It has its own theme song that is not like Spider-Man. They had their own thing, and the theme song was actually good. But it says the synopsis, it says each season of the series takes place over a semester of Peter's high school years, with season 1 running from September to November and season 2 from December to March. The producer stated that the series theme is the education of Peter Parker. In keeping with that theme, each of the show's arcs is named after a course of study. Seasons 1 arcs include Biology 101, Economics 101, Chemistry 101, Psychology 101, and Season 2 Engineering 101, Human Development 101, Criminology 101, and Drama 101. So, interesting stuff with that. But yeah, this is a lot of people's like favorite Spider-Man cartoon that was unfortunately cut short. So that is pitch number 3.
You said Spider-Man was 26 episodes and Carol and Tuesday was 24 or 26?
It is 24 for Carol and Tuesday. Yes. So yeah, to recap, pitch number 1 was the audio drama podcast Boraska. Pitch number 2 was Carol and Tuesday, and pitch number 3 was The Spectacular Spider-Man. Good old grab bag of stuff here.
Yeah, an interesting amount. I feel like I'm not in the mood to do a lot of a drama right now, so maybe not Boraska. That one sounds a little heavy. Like I'm very busy at work. I would put this on while I was at work, and I know I would retain nothing.
Sure.
We did the left-right game earlier this year, but that was an audio drama I had already listened to, so I had a leg up there. Man, we did do an anime in January, just like 3 months ago, which isn't bad. Man, I want to know why Carol and Tuesday has space stuff going on. Like why they couldn't be street performers just on regular Earth.
Yeah.
But I'm also really intrigued at this one Spider-Man cartoon that I don't remember hearing. And like, this thing probably like flashed right in front of my face. And it was just like, oh, okay, another Spider-Man cartoon, and never thought about it. So to hear you say that this is widely regarded as one of the finest incarnations of Spider-Man really has me intrigued. I think I want to go with that one. Why this one? Perfect. I want to learn what's great about this particular Spider-Man I've never heard of.
Some good old cartoons. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited for sure. Yeah, they've had a number of Spider-Man cartoons pop up throughout the years.
Yes.
And I guarantee you there's a couple in there that you probably didn't know existed.
Right.
Which is kind of wild considering that Spider-Man is Marvel's like biggest seller.
Well, he's also for often a younger audience. So like I remember the 90s cartoon. I think I remember there was one a handful of years ago on Disney XD. It had like a cool Aunt May with a pixie cut who dated Phil Coulson. Like I kind of remember like the most recent one and the one from when I was a child. And there surely is a glut of those in the middle that I missed that I don't know. There's probably been one since the one I'm remembering from college.
There has, I think. There's one that's like completely CGI. Like back in the day when they were like, what if we could make CGI shows? And it
just
was
like Beast Wars?
Yeah. Not that old, but yes, in a sense that it was just like, this probably didn't work out like they hoped. But yeah, Spectacular Spider-Man. I'm excited to rewatch this because I do remember really enjoying this. But yeah, it's been... I don't even remember how long ago I watched this. So I really don't remember anything about the plot or what happens in this here. So I'm excited to check it out in 2 weeks' time.
Okay.
That'll be fun. Oh, man, we've been recording for so long. Good God.
This is a long one. We had a lot to say about Napoleon Dynamite.
I did not realize that we had been recording for almost 2 hours now.
Well, thanks, everybody. Thank you for being here. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wilkywit, WILKYWIT, and listen to my other podcast, Saturday Morning Obscurities, for more 90s and early 2000s vibes.
Indeed. Yeah, you guys can find me at Yo Kyle Springer. And if you guys would like to stay up to date with all of the stuff that we do here at the Whatnauts, we are, of course, at the Whatnauts on Twitter. So please go like, share, and subscribe. That would help us out a ton. Of course, if you are on YouTube, go check out one of the other videos that we got that just popped up on screen right over there. That would help us out a ton as well. This has been number 251 of the Whatnauts review show. We will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.